Compassion is a defining characteristic of the human being, and it is something that develops throughout time. As far as humans are concerned, even in this day and age, there are still millions of people who are so ensnared in their own egocentric sense of self that they are unable to perceive or experience the reality of another human being. It is necessary for us to utilize the word empathy in this context, which is strongly connected to the concept of compassion. There are still a great number of people on our earth who are caught up in their own egocentric sense of self to the point where they are unable to empathize with others. Not only that, but there are a huge number of other people who exhibit empathy to a greater or lesser degree. And it goes without saying that compassion cannot exist in the absence of empathy. Having said that, this is of utmost significance, whether we are discussing compassion in relation to other individuals or other forms of life. For the time being, let's have a conversation about compassion toward oneself and what it means to have that compassion. Particularly, when your consciousness begins to awaken within you, you become conscious of the patterns that you have used in the past. There are numerous instances in which individuals who are beginning to awaken are beginning to become aware of their own conduct. This knowledge does not necessarily occur at the exact instant that the action occurs. However, it does begin to emerge in many cases. It is possible for such humans to become conscious, for instance, after they have engaged in unconscious speech, unconscious behavior, or reactive behavior, and all of a sudden, they realize, oh, of course, that's exactly what I did. When I was angry, I was entirely overcome by it. My response fully dominated me and took control of my life. I may have even gone so far as to resort to physical violence against that individual because I said things to them that I didn't really intend, but they just poured out of my mouth. Oh, I did that? How was it possible for me to do that? In addition, a great number of people who are in the process of awakening are going through similar phases in which they start to evaluate themselves as being inadequate. So that is something to be conscious of when, as you begin to awaken, you become an observer of yourself to a greater or lesser degree, rather than just being entirely associated with whatever comes into your thoughts and whatever words come out of your lips and whatever behavior you're engaged in. Because of the extent to which you are identified, there is not even the tiniest void of awareness. In this day and age, it is pointless to discuss the concept of compassion towards oneself with individuals who are so deeply unconscious. The fact that we are discussing compassion is a strong indication that you possess a certain level of awareness. There are periods in your life when you experience different levels of awareness, and these levels change from day to day. You are aware of yourself, and you are aware of the conduct that you engage in. Then you realize that there are times when you are unconscious, and in most cases you wake up, so to speak, out of it, and say, "Oh, I got taken over by my pain body again." This is the next step in the process. Friends, we suggest the following before moving forward. Encounter the next step with me slowly and watchfully. In addition, for a great number of individuals, this can become a source of sorrow, since they have the perception that they are not adequate. In addition to this, they start to develop a negative relationship with the more unconscious components of who they are, which are their faults. Therefore, having compassion for yourself means acknowledging that there are aspects of your life in which you are still unaware of the truth, and accepting that this is the case. This allows you to forgive yourself once more. The concept of forgiveness is connected to all of these things as well. In fact, they are strongly intertwined. To have empathy, compassion, and forgiveness. You forgive yourself for the times when you are unconscious, or for the things that you have done in the past that were not desirable. It is a question that I have been asked rather frequently. You have done certain things in the past that you now regret doing, and you did them when you were not as aware or when you were fully unaware of them. You are aware that they are extremely unconscious. What should you do with this information? The compassionate approach would be to acknowledge that at that moment you could not have acted differently because your actions represented the degree to which you were unconscious to begin with. And compassion is the result of that recognition. You choose to forgive yourself rather than creating an identity for yourself based on your own unconsciousness from the past, and saying, "I am this kind of a person," which is another example of a mental construct. Rather than constructing an identity for yourself based on your unconscious thoughts and actions from the past, you understand that your actions at that time were unconscious. Therefore, you brought into existence the collective, and ultimately the collective unconsciousness that is present in the human psyche, the collective psyche of all people together. For this reason, when you fail to develop an identity, you come to the realization that it does not accurately represent who you are at your core. Consequently, you develop compassion for yourself as a result. Nevertheless, it is also relevant to the present. For the time being, refrain from establishing demands of perfection that are impossible to achieve. Afterward, you are unable to meet. It is inevitable that there will be certain aspects of your life and certain things that will never be perfect. With regard to the level of form, it is impossible to be a perfect human person. There are always going to be certain things that you are good at, and there are also going to be other things that you are not good at, and that is perfectly fine, no matter how aware you are of the situation. Therefore, you do not expect yourself to be perfect, at least not on this level of manifestation. You have come to the knowledge that perfection already exists within you at the most fundamental level of who you are. At the most fundamental level, you are already flawless, and you are whole and whole. To answer your question, yes, there will always be some faults on the surface level. As a result, you have compassion for yourself in regard to the defects that you possess, which does not mean that you actively engage in conduct that is damaging to yourself or others and then respond with, "Oh, that's okay, I have compassion toward myself." For example, you might say, "I continue to get drunk 3 times a week and beat up my wife, and I'm just compassionate toward myself." Do not confuse this with what I am referring to. If you are able to see the misery that you are causing to other people, then you will be able to develop compassion. On the other hand, if it occurred in the past, that is a different story. As a result, there are certain types of conduct that need to be corrected by means of awareness and presence. If you found this journey in the thoughts that were provided to be beneficial, I strongly encourage you to give this video a like and share it with someone else who could benefit from experiencing something similar. If you want to find more inspiration for the future in your life, subscribe to this channel. Let's work together to share this message and continue our research of the fundamental truths that link us all together, therefore laying the route for a life that is more satisfying and enlightened by consciousness.